up on the forums and on the community, Power BI community as well, because people are struggling with writing DAX. They do write DAX through copy pasting, but they do not understand the basic concept of the DAX. So in this session, then for 40 to 45 minutes, you'll try to understand like what are the basic concepts of DAX and how we can write different measures and how we can quickly simplify the calculations using DAX. So this is my brief introduction. I have been doing a consultancy training, Power BI training. I have won award in 2018 and 2019. Sapphire and Ruby Award, and then I've been part of MCT community, and I've been running user groups around Middle East and Asian region. So that's a quick intro. You can connect me on LinkedIn. All the resources, useful resources, Power BI desktop, you can download from this URL. Sample data is available here. You can use DAX Studio. DAX Guide is here from SQL BI, Marco Russo, and DAX MS to Microsoft documentation is available at this particular link. So here are, we have designed some uh, exercises. So to make it interesting, so we have 4 exercises in our session, which will be first is to create explicit measures, and then we will have a second exercise to cater time intelligence measure, and then we will try to dig deep into calculate function, and then in the final exercise we will try to compare sum with sum x. Okay, hopefully this will make sense. Now let me switch to the Power BI files which I have. So currently I have this file, and this file already has this data loaded. I have loaded this data from the SharePoint site. So it has sales data, and I have created one calendar dimension here. So you can see the sales data is up here, which has different parameters: invoice ID, city, country, customer type, gender, product line, unit, quantity, things like that, and the sales date most importantly. And then we have the calendar dimension, where we have populated all the dates from year 2019 to 2022, going back to the visual pane report view. So I have what our first exercise is to create some measures. So let's create some measures, and let's try to define what is the purpose of creating the explicit measure. Let's say I'm going to make a copy of this page, and let's say validation page 1, and you need to create a chart where you have all the data, you have imported all the data, or you have made a connection and you the data is there. So now you want to create a chart which actually shows the sales. So usually what you do is you go there, you find out the sales field, you drag and drop it here, and you say, okay, this is my sales. Okay, which is going to be same 3204 3.2 million, something like that. So which is quite same, and I don't create any measure. So what happened now is, like, if I need to plot this against my product categories or product line, I can simply do it by this. So now these are my product lines, and this is my sales. So which is quite same. I can change this to a matrix, no problem. You can see all those totals are matching as well. If I want to make it, you could say, a column group just like this, I can make it available here as well. So I have a date field, I can make it here, and this will actually turn this up. So I will use the date dimension there. So that's the first part. Why, what it is doing, it is using the column, and it is actually using the sum default summation method or aggregation method. I can change to min max as well. If I change to average, now this becomes give me the average. So these are called the implicit measures. So Power BI automatically creates the calculations for you. But the problem with this is, if I want to use this calculation, I always all in other chart, or I need to refer this calculation somewhere else in my calculation. I need to again go back and do this thing, and this cannot be reusable, and this cannot be extendable. So the first thing is to create an explicit measure which I can refer, which I can reuse, and which I can extend on. And you will understand the benefit of it in a bit in the later exercises as well. So I created a measure called sales. So to create a measure, you need to go here. There are 4 or 5 different ways to create a measure. Like you can go here, home tab, you can click on new measure. That's one thing. You can go to modeling, you can click on new measure, and you can right click on any table and you can click new measure. Also, if you are on the modeling tab, you can click here new measure. So there are many different ways. I usually prefer to right click here and then click new measure, and I'll be creating a sales measure. So I will say underscore sales one, and this will be, I will be writing a very simple expression sum, and I'll be saying sum of sales because I know I have a sales column here. So this is my sales measure. I can format this one up the way I want. I can do the comma thing. I can say how many decimal places I want to see. I can even categorize if this is something else. I can categorize this as well. So let's place this measure here, and you will see it will give you the same results, right? So that's how we create a sales measure. Now our second part was to create order number of orders. So these are all the explicit measures. I will be creating you basic measures which you will be using in your day-to-day reporting purposes. So this is one of my sales measure. If I need to count the number of orders, I can create the number of orders measure as well. So let's get rid of this chart for now and focus more on some creating some more measures. So I have created this measure. If you want to, because this measure currently resides in this particular table, sales table, if I want to move it to some other table, I can simply go here in the measure tools home table. I can change the home table from sales to measure table. So I have always organized my measures, all the measures into my measure table. I created a measure table here, a dummy table where I organize, and I can go back here and I can actually align them into the folder structure as well. So you can see this is aligned into my folder structure. So that's one part. So I have created the sales measure. You can see the definitions of both the measures are same, which is sum of sales. So I can get rid of this for now. So that's how we create the number of sales measure. Now our second task is to create the number of orders and then average sales. So I have this thing called average number of orders. So how you create a number of order measures, you can simply count rows, which is I am doing, or you can do distinct count. You have a function called distinct count, and I can count the distinct count in the invoice number because I have the invoice number. Yeah, invoice ID. So I can use the distinct count invoice ID method and create this. Here in my table, I know I have some repeated invoice IDs just because of the model. So I will use the count rows function as well. And there are different methods as well to calculate the number of rows. Things like count rows will take the sales, the table name, and then it will count the number of rows. So that's how I created the number of orders measure. Now the third part is to calculate the average sales measure. How we will create the average sales measure is we will create another new measure and we say average sales and say we have an average function here in DAX. So we'll try to utilize this and say average sales, and we will use the function like this. We can use this like, okay. So I will give you 2 or 3 examples of average sales and what is the right way to calculate the average here, and we can format this up as well. So now let's try to create a chart where we have the product line and we have average, we have number of orders, and we have average sales and the total sales, right? Okay, I have placed this, I have turned this to a matrix visual uh, like this, and maybe we can go here, do some styling here. You can ask the question in between. So this is my yeah. So you see, these are the number of average sales orders. So there are different ways to calculate the average. So I'm just trying to explain it to you one by one. Now, if I create a measure called average sales one, and if I say average, this time rather than using the table column name, if I use the measure which I have created, so in my table I have a measure called underscore sales. Cannot use this one for now, sorry. If I use this calculation like divide, I have the sales measure. So if I divide my sales with the number of order, with the number of orders, I will get or I can say alternate is 0. So or you can, it's alternate is optional. If you don't provide, it won't have an impact. So now this time I'm calculating the average sales using the divide function, dividing this whatever the sales for that particular. So this will be creating dynamic, and then whatever the number of orders during this. Now let's try to place this one here as well in the same chart, so we can compare this side by side, and you find the same results, right? So I can see I have this as the same result. Let's say for now, so I can see the same results, right? And if I turn this off and let's say I change this to city or maybe month, I can do some. Now this time let's add some filters to it, so to make it more useful, like if you want to filter it out based on date, I can put the date slicer here, and I can say this is my year filter, and I want to only see 2020, and I want to see only following months. So if I go here, I change this one out, and let's do it again, and this time I only leave the month. So these are all the months. So if I can click, I can see all the calculation. What is the good part of this one? This these two, the difference between the average, using the advantage of using this divide, I can provide the alternate result as well. Like if some of the categories might not have the sales, so they might come up here as 0, or they don't have anything else, so they might come up here as 0 as well. So let's clear this out. So in our first part of the exercise, we create some explicit measures to create sales, number of order, and average sales measure. So I will leave these two as it is here, and we will move to the second part of the exercise. So our second exercise actually says create last year sales, last month sales, and percentage sales year over year increase or month over month increase. So how do you calculate these measures? So this is the another very common question, like I want to have this one last year sales, I want to have last 2 years sales, I want to see last month sale, I want to see last n month sales. So this kind of question is very common into the DAX scenario, and people are struggling with this to calculate these things. So we come up with a solution like, okay, how you can actually solve those things. So here, this is still the same chart. Now let's save this file. Always a good practice to save the Power BI file, whatever you are working. And I can get rid of this because I already have this on the another page. So this was my validation sheet. Okay, let's save it. So for now, let's calculate the last year sales. To calculate the last year sales or any of the time intelligence function, you need to first have a date dimension with no with continuous dates. Like I can use this column here in my sales table. I have this column called sales date, or maybe the date. If I can see here, yeah, this date column. So in my sales table I have this date column, but this date column does not have the continuous date. So to for time intelligence to work correctly and calculate the right results, you need the date dimension with the continuous dates. So I have created the date dimension with a very simplistic method, which is using the calendar function. I can provide the start date and the end date, and it will actually populate all the dates starting from 2019 January 01 till 2022 December 31st. So you can see all the dates are there. So these are all the continuous dates are there. So this is the simplest method. Other way is to create calendar auto using that, and then you can use create a calendar table using M code or Power Query, and you can use already built SQL script to actually refer that into your Power BI as well as a calendar dimension. So thing is, like, you need to have this calendar dimension in order for your time intelligence to work correctly. And I have connected my calendar dimension to my effect table using the date key, and you can see the dimension is many to one or one to many. And always make sure you use the cross filter direction to single, don't turn this to both. Okay, now to calculate the last year sales, I need to write a new measure. And let's say, how do we write this measure? So I say this is my underscore last year sales, and I say calculate. This time I'll say sales. I want to calculate sales because I already defined the function called sales. And this time I can use, there are different methods. So I can use date add and date, I'm a number of into -1, and this is year. Okay, so I calculated this one, and let's see if I'm able to calculate the last year sales. So let's see if I'm able to calculate the last year sales. So currently I have this 2022 sales selected. So if I put this last year sales here into the same table, here, and let's try to remove those average sales for now, just to make it not too cluttered. So you see, I am able to see this last year measure is actually giving me some values. So let's try to go to the validation sheet and see if I am actually seeing the correct results. So I sorted this by product line, so I can compare this one here, and this is also sorted by product line. So when I select 2020, because this is my selection, so 2019 sales is 201,952. We can go here 201,952, and we can calculate some more. Health and beauty 188, which is saying as 188, and then this is sports and travel is 209, right? So this is how we calculate the last year sales. How about if your requirement is to create not the last year sale but the last 2 year sales? So how you go about that? Like, if I'm selecting 2021, I want to see the sales of 2019. So there are requirements like that. So you can go there and you can simply say extend this measure. So let's try to inspect what this measure is doing. So this measure is using the calculate function, and this is using the sales measure. This is actually calculating the sales, and then this is the filter part of the expression where actually the magic happens. So what I am saying is, like, date add, like this is my calendar dimension or the date field, and I'm actually doing the -1. So I need to go back -1 period, and the period is actually year. So what I'm doing is I'm actually going back 1 year and then calculating the sales, right? So this is how the DAX Studio or your DAX expression is being evaluated. Now, if you want, this thing to actually calculate last 2 years, what you can do, you can simply change this to the last 2 years, and now this time you see current year sales is this one 2021, and you can see this is the 2021 sales which is showing up here in the sales measure, but the last year measure is still showing the 2019 sales because I have changed this to show the -2 year sales. So how about if I want something more advanced, something more slick? So I will just extend this to one more complexity. Before let's talk about one thing, and then we will add some one more complexity to it. Okay, so this is my last year measure. Let's keep it back like last 1 year. So I'm fine with it. Now, if you want to calculate the last month sales, so how do you want to calculate the last month sales? It is very simple again. You calculate the new measure, and this time you say last month sales, and hopefully you guys have already guessed it, like what I will be writing the expression this time. So I'll be writing the calculate. I need to calculate date sales, and then I will be using the date and date add function. I'll be using the calendar date field, and then I'll say -1, and this time rather than using year, I will use the month function, right? So this will have, so let's try to place this measure here as well, last month sales, and what this is actually showing me up here. So if I select April, so this is actually showing me the April sale. This is showing me the last year April sales, and this is actually showing me the this year March sales, right? Because April is the current month, so the next 1 month behind is the March. So that's how you calculate this function, last month sales. Now there are different ways, like many people calculate using the same period last year or parallel period function. You can read more into the documentation. I will create one more flavor to it, and then we will be moving to the next part. So let's try now. You want to create the year over year increase. So how do you create year over year increase? So the best way I would say is, like, if you want to create percentage year over year increase or month over month year or month over month increase, so you can go, easiest way is to go to the quick measure, and there are almost 50 or 60 already built-in calculations available here with Microsoft, which you can create. So I will go here and I will go into the time intelligence part, and I will say I need to calculate year over year change, and my measure is the sales measure because I want to calculate sales year over year, and I'll provide the date key here, and I will say the period. This is the one period, -1 actually this will be taking. So once I create, you see this has actually created this sales year over year. I will actually make this home table to say here, and also change the home table to measure here as well. So all my measures will be aligned here. So I have this sales year over year increase measure. Now let's try to bring this measure up here as well. And you can see it already have this formatted as a percentage and everything is like. So if I go to 2021, 2020, you can see my year over year increase is this one, 1.06. This category, in this particular category, I have this -1. In this food and beverages, I have a high demand, 25% increase. So that's how I can calculate the year over year increase. How about if I want to calculate month over month increase? So I can use the same quick measure thing, and I will go here and let's try to inspect this thing. So you will see what this is doing. This is actually calculating the previous year sales in this part. So you can see it's calculating the sales and then using the same format, date, calendar year, -1, and then the year function. So it needs to go back 1 year back. And then what it is doing, this is minus current year sales minus previous year sales and then divide by previous year sales to get the sales year over year increase. So if I want to create this one as a month over month, I can do it, right, copy paste, and I can change this thing period to month, and then everything will be calculated based on month. Or I can simply use the quick measure and Power BI do the rest of the work. So I can just show you here, this is month over month change, and then I can say I need to calculate the sales and based on this date key. So if I do this, you see Power BI created the month over month measure and then define the format, everything is there, and I can see the sales month over month. And if I select the month, I can see how much increase it is from March, it is from Feb, this much increase. It would be more, it would make more sense if I put this measure here which I created earlier, which was last month sales. So if I put them side by side, I remove this last year sales measure for now. So you can see how much increase from previous month to current month. So this is the time. Do you have any question till this point? Because we are halfway mark, I will take few questions and then we will move to some more complex parts. So okay, so somebody asked like what is the formula you showed. So this is the formula which I showed, and I can write this into the chat as well, so you can provide this as a start and end date. So you can write. So this is the way, simplest way to create the date dimension. Now what about if somebody wants you to calculate the last n months or last n years sales based on the parameter? So how about this? So I have a complexity added up here. So I say I create a what if parameter. I go to the modeling tab and I say I need to create a what if parameter here, and I will name my name as number of years. Let's say, so I say number of year, and I say I can go back -5 period to +5 period. So and the default value is -1, right? So I want to add this as a slicer to the page. So here I have created a parameter, and I go here, do one thing here. So I say this is my parameter. User can select whatever the number of years or whatever the number of month they want to go back and forward. So currently the default value is -1. So if I clear this out, this will be set up to -1. And how do I use this into my calculation? So I will go here. If you remember this part, this last year's sales. So I have this -1 as a hard coded value. So how if I want to reuse this value? So I can go here, and this time I say I create a variable called la number of year, and I assign the value selected. So I say whatever the value which I have selected in my number of year, I need to use that value. Okay. So this is my value. If you go here, this actually creates a table here, and I'm using this number of year value. So let's just go back to the point. I will say what this what if parameter created actually. So this is fine. So this what if parameter, I have this table. You can see this is actually generating a -5 to minus uh, +5, and then the increment is always +1, and then it has created a value called selected value, this, and the default value is this, right? So this is the thing it calculates. And now I go here, I can show you into the table as well. So this is the series it calculates from -5 to +5. If I go back here and I want to reuse this one, how I can reuse? So I have this measure called last year's sales. I can change this to something like that, more dynamic. So I say variable and number of year equals whatever is selected. So I already have a measure called number of year. So I use this measure, right? Number of year value, because this is a measure. And then what I can do, I can return this, and rather than using this -1, I can use minus number of year. Sorry. So I have this number of year error, right? And everything else is same. How about this? So once I change this, you see I'm in 2020. I have selected this one. If I select 2021, and I need to place here my last and I can say this last or next year sales, whatever the selection is. So I place this here, and then I get rid of some of the things like sales. I get rid of last one sales and this one. So I can now compare them side by side. So if you see my sales is, did I select any month? Yes. So my sales for 2021 is this, and my sales for last 1 year, which is I have selected. So if I go here into the validation sheet, I can see this is -122 and this is -124. If I go back and I can say I need to see -2 years. So this is how I can see -2 years. And if I select 2019, this will show blank. But if I go to, I want to see +2 years. So I can go, this will show 2021, and if I 2022, and if I click one more, so this will start showing me 2020. So this is how you make it dynamic. How about something more advanced to it? Like if I want to see number of months, like number of n months, I can play around, and rather than having only this one, I create, I want to have something called like cumulative sum. So how do you go about that? Do you have any idea how do you go about this one thing? Let me read through the chat as well if you have anything. Do you find it interesting, or you or this is too much basic for you guys? You can type it into the chat as well. So if you want to see the number of months, you can simply go here and create new what if parameter. And this time you could say this is number of months, and I could say I can go back -12 and then +4, and the default is -12. So I add this to the slicer. So this gives me number of months. I go here and just turn the responsive off. So if I want to use the minus number of months, like how I want to calculate this one thing, Thank you for the feedback. So this one I want to calculate minus number of months. So let's do one more thing here. I have this chart. Let's try to scroll it down. Just we'll add one more thing here. So if I want to calculate, like I have selected this April, right? And this time or 2022 and then April. Now this time I want a measure which I want to calculate whatever the selection period is, and I want to calculate last 12 months from or last 13 months or last or forward 10 months. So how do I go about this one? So let's say I have this thing and I will need to extend this one as well. So I say last slash next month sales, and I will do something more similar. So this will be my number of months. Number of months equals to, I have the parameter where I have created the measure number of months. So I get this value, the number of months value, and then I can have one more measure called underscore date period, dates in period, and I will say this one as calendar date, and this time I calculate one more thing, max. This is called underscore max date, number of interval equals to number of months, and intervals equals to month, right? So I have created this function, and then in the return part of the statement I would say calculate sales, and then simply providing, rather than this statement, I provide this date period, right? Let's try to see if this works. Okay, we get rid of this thing for now. Now this is calculating minus 12 months. So let's try to put the sales measure here, and let's try to put this as a bar. So what you noticed here is if I click this one. So currently this is only showing me sales for this particular month, April. So if I go to the validation sheet here, so this is only showing me the sales for April, which is 171K. So how if I want to showcase last, so I have this measure here, last and month sales. How about if I try to put this measure here? Now this is actually giving me 1.3 million, which is the last three sales. Now if I try to plot this against the calendar dimension, you will see if I try to extend, sorry, remove these three things, try to expand the all levels, it will only show me all the sales in the month of April. How about if I want to plot this against, like I want to see April, March, and then break up by month. So if I create something like a dummy dimension in my table, and I called a new column here, and I say my new column is calendar, and then this is end of month. I will use the end of month function, and I have this date because in my sales table I have this date column here as well. So I can use the sales date, and then I'll use enter. So for now I have created a column here, which is, if you can see, this is, if I click on the table, You can see this table, this column is nothing more than the end of the date, whatever the month is. And if I go back here, and now this time rather than putting this date here, if I use this calendar here and I remove everything else, and let's try to expand this one for now. So you see 171K is here, 117, and I'm going back to last 12 months. Did you get this point? So how do I get to this level? So to get to this level, what I have done, I have created a measure called last 10 months. I get the maximum date of my value, whatever the selected date is. So if I select 2020 April, what it does, it will give me the maximum date of April, which is the 31st of the April or 30th of the April, whatever. So the last date, actually it will give 30th of April, right? So if I select May, it will give me the maximum or the last date of the month of May. And you can see it is going back to the 12th month from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So it will go back 12 period. So if I select and I want to go it by only 4 periods, so you can see it's now only going back to the 4 period, and the calculation, the answers remain the same. And this can be like, if I want, this can be summed up to the whole year level. Now all this sum it up to the 535, and this can be dynamic. Like I can use it against the date, and I'm not only limited to the date. If I want to categorize it by any other field, I can categorize it by that field, by that particular KPI attribute as well. Okay, I think someone okay. Now let's suppose if I choose this 5, but this time I have selected the 5 forward period. You see the sales has been changing dynamically, and if I expand this one, I can see I can go back or forward. So the only problem you might notice here is now this time I am unable to see the sales for the May. So anyone able to figure it out? Now I have left this intentionally here, and I can say for, and this time I would say mandate, and I will explain you it in a minute. So what's happening now when I take the max state, and if I want to move forward, so the max date of May is 31, and then it's actually going from 31st May to onwards forward 5 months, but that should not be the case. So if I go here and I select one more thing called min max date equals to, and this time I use a switch or maybe a if statement. If I say if this is greater than 0, then I want to use min date, otherwise I want to use max date. So this is a simple thing. If the number of month value, if the number of month value is positive, so I want to use this minimum date. So I want to include that period. And if the number of period is negative, then I want to use the max date. And this time, rather than use this min max date as a start date, I will use this one. Let's try to format this one, apply. And you see, I can see the sales for these periods. Okay, now if I go here, I'm able to see the dates here: March, April, May, June, something like that. -1 period, I'm only seeing this one -3. I'm seeing March till Jan, and 3 you can see March till May, right? Any question till this point? Anyone has any question? You can raise this question for now. Or if I want to go back and see 12 months, you can see I can go and do all the 12 months here, right? If I click this to the default value, now this starts showing me the default 12 month sales. Okay, one more question. Can we use this as a table too? How to create the time dimension? Can you compute a time span series of all order dates? Yes, we can create everything. Okay, so we will take these questions one by one. Now let's try to move to the third exercise, because I think we only have last 15 minutes left, and this session is already very interesting, and I see you guys are very much enthusiastic about it. So let's try to move to the exercise third, and because this is the most common mistake I see people do while doing writing the calculate function, utilizing the calculate function. So this time I rename this as duplicate validation 2 page for now. Everything else I leave this as it is. Now let's try to remove this for now. Let's try to create a measure where I will use the calculate function, and I will calculate the sales. New measure. I will use the something called I want to only see the city-wise sales, because this was our exercise. So I want to say, okay, I want to only see Dubai sales, let's say. So what usually people do is like we will go there, calculate. They already have a sales measure, so they say, okay, we will use the sales measure, and then you see the calculate has two parts. First part is the expression which you want to evaluate, and then the filter part. So this is very important concept to understand, like what this filter part is. And if I write simple statement like this, city say sorry, the city sales equals Dubai. So you can say Power BI validate this, and it does not give you any error, right? How about if I try to, okay, let's not jump into the results, because then you will be able to clearly see. Let's say if I already have this thing called sales measure here, and I turn this into a matrix, and this time I plot this against the city, something like that. So you can see I have these things available here as well. If I remove this March, for now I can see the whole year sales. So I have this one. Let's go quickly do some of the formatting things so you can be more readable. Okay. So I can see the sales here. I have created one measure here called Dubai sales. I called Dubai sales 0. So this is my first abstract to this thing, to this measure, the first try. And I will give you, like, there are different ways people write, because people can write this like this. They can write this by one another thing. I could say it like, I can write the filter clause here, filter, and the filter will take a table. So I want to filter this sales table, and then I will have this filter table expression sales city equals to Dubai, right? So this is my first bracket close, and then the second, and then you can see you can write in your calculate function, you can write as many as filter expression as you want. You can write this, it will go on like. So currently I'm just putting this like this. So I will say this as sales 1, and then I will create one more measure, because I see these mistakes so many times in the forums, into the chat, into the model when we are into the client or anywhere else. So I think this would take this much time to describe it. So how about if I write something like this? So all three measures use different filter expression. Now, can anyone of you try to guess like what would be the result of these three things before I put this into this matrix visual? So I want you to be on the chat and try to see, will this all these three measures return the same result, or these three return all three returns the different results? What would be the case? What is in your mind? So I will try to just read out the comments. Third wrong. Okay, good. Let's try to put this one. Power BI, actually you see this DAX expression, all these three DAX expression evaluate successfully and then the measure is created. So let's try to pull all these three and just see the magic. So first one, you see, second one, you see the results, and somebody says the third one is going to be wrong. So no, it still gave you the same result, right? Why I answered before putting it. So you might not think that I don't know. So now let's try to inspect, try to further grill it down what is happening around. So when you write it like this, sales city equals to y, and which is the most common thing I saw people write, just because they see this is the filter expression and then they see this is the y. So what happened now is like it does not take any context. It just filters the city sales equals Dubai. And then even if you are going in different year, if you are slicing or dicing it by any other dimensionality, it just gives you the same result irrespective of. So irrespective of this sales hierarchy or the cities, like it only takes the city sales, and even for the Abu Dhabi you can see it is actually returning you the same result, and for Sharjah it is returning you the same result because it does not take this city KPI into consideration while evaluating. Okay, now going back to the second dimension. So the second dimension, actually what second measure, sorry, what it does, it actually filtering the sales tables, and it's actually filtering out the sales table based on what? Based on the city, right? Based on the city where city equals to Dubai. So it's going back, and if it sees like when the city is Abu Dhabi, it is actually not calculating anything because it's only filter the sales data where city sales or the city name equals to Dubai. So for Abu Dhabi and Sharjah, you don't see any sales, right? And same with the third measure as well. Third measure, first part, it's actually filtering the sales data. And in the second part, it is actually filtering based on the column called city. So that's why these two result the same. Any question? I think there are a lot of questions on this. It overrides different results, will produce different results, different, same. So I see all kind of it overrides all context. So I see everybody, what is the best practice? Yes. Okay. So I would always prefer this second approach which I have. So always try to, so you make sure that you are filtering based on what. So you don't expect anything out of the blue. You are sure that you have actually filtered the table and you have filtered on any specific attribute. So how about if somebody wants to filter the sales for Abu Dhabi? So if I change this to Abu Dhabi, something like this for now, and you can see the sales this time only shows for Abu Dhabi. So this is kind of calculation you have done. I think we are almost up to the finish time. So I will wrap it up here and I will open the floor for the Q&A, and hope we could cover the exercise number 4, which is very interesting, sum versus sum x, but maybe next time, or we will do the extended session if somebody misses out today. Is there performance difference between 2 and 3? Can we filter? Can we use the filter within a filter using the filter function? Like this, we are already using a filter function, and then we are already applying the filter expression. So if I go back here, what is the syntax of the filter function? So this is my filter function. If you see, if I open here, so filter first asks you the table which you want to filter, or table could be a physical table or it could be a calculated table as well. And then you need to provide a filter expression. So it's actually asked for the expression as well. So here I provide the expression. What about if I provide here something like this? So this will be, I'm not sure what's happened. Uh, you guys are still able to see my screen? So this will be something same, which I was. So this is something similar. How about if you want to calculate per category? So this is the question you might always ask. So if I want to calculate the total sales, something like that. Uh, so let's try to go and do one more thing before I finally close it down. So if I want to calculate total sales for every period. So I calculate total sales and I say something like this, all sales, oh, all except sales table, and then column name. Let's see if this, I have this, yeah. Let's see if this works. So what will happen now? So there are like, now let's see, I try to put this measure up here, total. So you can see this is actually showing you the sales. And if I go to the my validation sheet, so if I go here, copy paste this one for now, and this time rather than slicing it, dicing it by product category, if I slice it, dice it by city, you can see the overall sales for each of the year is 972, which it is giving. So if you want to calculate this by how much this year divided by overall period, if you want to do it by any other field, so you can do it like this. So with this, we have to close this one, and hopefully I will welcome Pragati. I will hand it over. I will be doing the moderator duties as well. So I will stop presenting and I will start my Q&A. If you have any Q&A, otherwise we'll welcome Pragati here as well. She's already here with us. Let's see if we can see her. Hi, Pragati.